Hello? Rescue hooks to rescue, Mayday! Get ahead, West. Fast Mayday, what's your location? Get the panel out of here, hurry up! We need radio silence, I need water in that 2.5 inch line. 48 inch water in a 2.5 inch line. To the rope, to the rope. 35 in the rear, 35 in the rear.
Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Hello, welcome back to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, episode number 55. This week I am joined by Denis. Our other hosts are all busy doing summer stuff or working, so it's Statler and Waldorf again for this episode, the retired guys. This week, we review a NIOSH report of a firefighter who drowned in Colorado in the year 2000 during localized flooding due to heavy rains in a suburban area. Firefighter drownings are not unheard of and all too frequent, in my opinion. We plan to review some more of these tragic incidents that are usually preventable in the future. I would like to note, last week I was happy to notice during a recent flooding in Mississauga, Ontario, I noted that all the first responders were wearing appropriate PPE, including personal flotation devices and rescue ropes, and they were not wearing structural firefighting PPE. Please sit back and listen while I bring Denis in and we review this incident. Hey Denis, how are you today?
I'm excellent. And you?
Good. Welcome back.
Yep,
Doing another session here.
Yep, enjoying the summer sunshine.
Yeah. Have you been riding your motorcycle?
Yeah, I was out on the bike on Sunday. Actually, we did a little trip. We were only gone 9 hours. So
9 hours? Holy cow.
Oh yeah, that's a normal one. So this time of the year, we like to get going in the morning, and we generally come home in time for dinner.
Right, yeah. Of course, you stop for a couple hours in the 9 hours, right?
Oh, yeah. There's at least 25 Tims on those trips. So. No. Yeah, you would have laughed. We went down. We were at a beach. It was 28, 29 degrees, hotter than hell, and there we are, all dressed in our motorcycle gear, watching the people on the beach. Right?
Yeah.
Because we needed a place to go, so we said,
right.
Let's go down. Let's go down to the beach. You know, it's only a couple 100 kilometers, no big deal.
Yeah. Cool.
So we got there. We spent 5 minutes standing there looking at the beach and said, okay, let's go home.
Let's get moving. It's getting too hot here. We got to keep moving, get some air flowing.
Yeah, I'm getting dust on my bike. It's in the parking lot. There's people driving around.
Yeah. Oh, boy. I got a dual sport. It's always dirty.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to clean it and shine it.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, something that you and I have talked about before, of course, is firefighter drownings during water rescue efforts. And there's a couple on my calendar that I have penciled in that we're going to do in the future. The one in Montreal that happened in, I think it was October. And then in the spring, Quebec a couple of years ago, lost a couple of firefighters as well. But this one here happened in Colorado in August of 2000. When on August 17th, a 37-year-old male career firefighter drowned while attempting to rescue a civilian who was stranded in floodwaters. You get these crazy summer rains, storms that dump a whole bunch of water in an area over a short period of time, and you get flooding. And I was in Saskatoon actually during a big flood back in, I don't know, I was a paramedic at the time, 1987, 88, and no, 84. And a big rainstorm came and it flooded all the underpasses and it collapsed the roof of the mall and those kind of things. And a person drowned in her car in an underpass, and we drove by that underpass on the way to the roof collapse. And I said to my partner, I said, I wonder if anybody's checked all those cars. And then we were, of course, on our way to a call. So we kept going. And sure enough, there was a person who had passed away in their car as it sank in the water in the underpass. So these things can happen, and we need to be prepared for them. And they can happen anywhere. We mentioned earlier, we talked about the flooding in the Montreal area and parking lots full of water and underpasses and stuff. And happens, as climate changes.
Water is very dangerous. If you listen to the news broadcasts coming out of the U.S., for instance, like Hurricane Debbie just came through, and like the newscasters tell you, it's not the wind that's most risky. It's not the thunder. It's not the lightning. It's the water.
Yeah.
And the flash flooding and advancing waters is usually responsible for the most number of fatalities in major storms.
So in this episode, this case, and we do these so you learn from them and you're aware of them just to increase your awareness of it. This is a career fire department. In this incident, serves a population of approximately 500,000 people in an area of 155 square miles and is comprised of 921 uniformed personnel. They staff 31 fire stations. On the day of the incident, weather conditions were cloudy with severe rain and thunderstorm. Upon arrival at the scene, the firefighters' virtual 360, they found a 4-lane boulevard in a commercial retail area with nearby parking lots for banks and stores on each side of the boulevard. Very typical for modern day suburbs in Western North America. We have these all over the place, where you get the retail area. I think of Sandpoint and Coeur d'Alene and Denver and Colorado Springs and those type of areas. Regina, Prince Albert, Saskatoon, Edmonton, Calgary, we all have these areas in the suburbs. A large culvert crossed below the roadway. The area was completely flooded due to this recent heavy rains. So the site of the incident consisted of a 4-lane divided boulevard. There was a 5-foot diameter culvert or pipe which feeds into a drainage system and an underground cement vault measuring 10 by 8 feet. The drainage pipe, which was laid under the boulevard, measured approximately 5 feet in diameter. The exposed open south end of the pipe lies within a large drainage ditch into which it empties. So all the parking lots and stuff from the area, they all drain into these drainage ditches on each side of the boulevard. The bottom of the pipe at the inlet was approximately 8 feet below the road surface. The inlet was not covered and it was totally accessible. On the day of the incident, floodwaters were approximately 10 feet deep at the inlet and were flowing in a northerly direction. With this amount of water, the pipe had a capacity of approximately 200 cubic feet per second and a velocity of approximately 15 feet per second. The drainage pipe was on a 6-year plan to be replaced with a larger capacity pipe, and to be covered to prevent injury due to high flood water that occurred in that area from time to time. This work was expected to begin in 2003. Since this incident, a junction box has been installed which covers the drain to the surface level.
So just let me point out here that 200 cubic feet per second of water flow. Fresh water weighs 62 pounds to the cubic foot. And do the math on that. That's tons per second.
Yeah.
So if you had any part of your body that was in this stream, it's highly unlikely that you could have resisted being pulled in.
Yes, that's a good point.
Extreme forces involved in this.
Yeah, there's no way you can move.
Yeah.
I've done swiftwater rescue, and you try to walk, across the river, and you get above your ankles, and you're gone.
Yeah.
Both the victim and firefighter number 1 were wearing firefighter turnouts consisting of bunker pants, coats, boots, gloves, and a helmet. Neither the victim nor the assisting firefighter had received any water rescue training. The victim was certified through the state as a firefighter level 2 and had 3 years and 4 months experience.
Right. And bunker gear is probably the worst thing you can wear.
Yes,
around flowing water.
Yeah, because it's bulky and big and catches lots of water in it and gets heavy quickly.
Yeah, you're better to be naked.
Mm-hmm. Yep, go down to your civilian clothes underneath.
Yep.
On August 17th in 2000, 1700 hours, Unit 10 was dispatched to assist stranded motorists in flood water on the boulevard. Responding on Unit 10 was a captain, an engine operator, and firefighters 1, 2, and 3, and 4, the victim. The engine operator positioned the apparatus approximately 2 blocks to the south of the flooded area and noticed the street was filled with standing water approximately 3 feet deep. Several stranded cars were stopped in the area. The captain sent the victim and firefighter 1 to the north to check for any motorists that were in need of assistance. The two firefighters waded through approximately knee to waist high water for approximately 2 blocks, checking in several cars that were floating in the water. After approximately 15 minutes on the scene, the victim called the captain on his radio and reported that all the civilian motorists had exited their cars. The captain told the victim and firefighter 1 to remain at the north end of the street to provide traffic control and inform drivers to use an alternate route until the police arrived on scene. The victim positioned himself near the curb to the northbound lane, and firefighter 1 was standing on near the median in the southbound lane directing traffic. A few minutes later, a civilian... Sorry, did you have something to say?
I was just going to say, these firefighters were wading in water up to their waist.
Yep.
I would have some serious concerns about sending a crew into that deep of water dressed in bunker gear, and especially with no water training. Like, I can hear the arguments now. Well, somebody has to do it. We were called to do it. But the comment I would make in response to that is the appropriate resources in the fire department should have been brought to the scene. If anybody was in a car that was submerged in the water, they're probably not rescuable, at least initially. So, bring the appropriate resources.
Yeah, I've seen lots of people, firefighters, going and getting people in their car, and I mean, you can stand in the water. You just get out of your car and walk. But I mean, you never know. There could be people with handicaps and stuff like that that might need assistance, and then it's going to be a judgment call. Of course, you can't tell how deep the water is until they're standing in it, but yeah, it's something to be definitely on guard for, and maybe PFDs on every truck at least would be the thing I would want. I know we did that in my department. I said every truck should have at least, enough personal flotation devices for each member. A few minutes later, a civilian security guard at a bank across the street began yelling the victim and firefighter 1 that a female was stranded in the water and needed help. Neither the victim nor firefighter 1 could see the stranded female, but they immediately began wading towards the security guard to investigate why he was yelling. On the way to the other side of the street, the victim called the captain on the radio to inform him that they had received notice of a civilian that was stranded and they were going to check further into the situation. Firefighter number 1, approximately 40 feet in front of the victim, approached the west side of the street and could see a female standing and holding onto a small metal pole, typically used for street signs, rising out of a pool of water. Firefighter 1 then entered the large pool of water to retrieve the civilian. Firefighter 1 stated that he believed the water was only 3 feet deep, because that's what they were walking in, right? And that the civilian was standing on the ground. Therefore, he thought it was safe to enter the water. He was not aware that the civilian was standing on the edge of a large slope into the pool of water, which was approximately 10 feet deep. Firefighter 1 also stated that he did not see any visible current when he entered the water. As Firefighter 1 approached the civilian, he began to go under the surface of the water. The victim approached the pool of water and saw Firefighter 1 going under the water due to undertow. The victim reportedly handed his radio to a civilian bystander and got to protect that $1,000 radio, entered the water to help Firefighter 1. The victim grabbed Firefighter 1 and they both struggled to the edge of the water. Firefighter 1, with his back to the water, climbed onto the bank, coughing from water he had swallowed. Before the victim re-entered the water to assist the civilian, he told Firefighter 1 to radio for help. As Firefighter 1 turned around, the victim was gone, and his helmet was circling on the surface of the water. Firefighter 1 removed his bunker coat and told the civilian witnesses to use the radio and call for help. Firefighter 1 stated that at this point he still did not realize that there was a large diameter pipe below the surface of the water. He thought he was being pulled under the water because of his bunker coat and pants that were weighing him down. Firefighter 1 re-entered the water and assisted the civilian to safety. Witnesses found a welding cable and tied it around Firefighter 1's waist. He re-entered the water and began to frantically search for the victim under the surface of the water. At 17:44 hours, a female civilian witness used the radio to call for help. The captain, several hundred feet to the south of the scene, was confused about who was on the radio, Since his crew did not have any females on duty, he thought first that it was a firefighter on another scene. During the search efforts, Firefighter 1 went under the water hoping to see the victim below the surface. After not locating the victim, Firefighter 1 exited the water and called on the radio for help, stating that a firefighter was down. The captain and Firefighter 3 ran to the location. As they approached the pool of water from the south, they saw several bystanders forming a human chain and assisting Firefighter 1 in the water, who was searching for the victim. I mean, heroic efforts here. This is like,
you can imagine the state of mind.
oh my gosh. Firefighter 1 stated that at this point he realized that there was a large culvert under the surface of the water and that he was reaching into the culvert searching for the victim. The captain instructed Firefighter 2 to radio dispatch for additional resources and the underwater team. He then instructed all bystanders to exit the water. The approximately 17:55 following units were dispatched to the scene. District Chief 2, Rescue 11, which was an underwater unit with a lieutenant, an engine operator, a safety diver, a technician. Truck 9 with a firefighter acting lieutenant, an engine operator, and 3 firefighters. Pumper 9 with a captain, engine operator, and 2 firefighters. Pumper 1, which was a dive team with a lieutenant and 2 technicians. A representative from the city wastewater management department was also called to the scene to provide maps of the underground drains.
So they had the resources, they just weren't on scene.
Yeah, they were available. And it happened so fast, right?
Wow.
That's why I wanted to do this one, because it's something we need to be aware of.
Yeah. So when District Chief number 2 arrived on the scene, he assumed IC. Firefighter 1 was continuing his search in the area where the victim had gone under the water. The IC was briefed by the captain of the truck that the victim had been lost for approximately 10 minutes. The IC noted that the pool of water now had a large whirlpool effect. The IC requested Engine 9 to respond to the scene. So, Engine 9, Pumper 9, it's been called further up.
Captain, engine operator, firefighters.
Yeah. The IC requested Engine 9 to report to the scene. At approximately 18:05 hours, Engine 9 arrived with a captain, engine operator, and 2 firefighters. The captain from Engine 9 informed the IC that he knew where the culvert exited and that he had old maps of the drainage system. The maps were last updated in 1994. However, the drainage system had been modified since then. The IC directed him and his crew to search the location where the culvert ended. This is why map updating is so critical, but it's often overlooked, unfortunately. During additional rescue attempts, the engine operator from Engine 9 used a self-contained breathing apparatus underwater in the open culvert on the opposite side of the driveway to the bank to assist in finding the victim. The IC instructed the engine operator from Truck 9 to don an SCBA, and he entered the water where the victim was last seen. So this is at the entrance to the culvert. He was tied off with a rope line and noted that the water was calm at the surface. However, approximately 5 feet below the surface, the force of the water started to pull him into the pipe. He signaled to the surface crew to pull him up. Wow, that was a close
That's
call.
a near miss.
And he's wearing an SCBA as an air source.
Yeah, some SCBAs can be used underwater.
Yeah, I wonder if their SOPs accommodate that.
Yeah.
At approximately this time, the dive team arrived. The IC briefed a safety diver from Rescue 11 about the conditions. The diver was equipped with a wetsuit, self-contained breathing apparatus, scuba, underwater, and was tied off around the waist with a rescue rope. The diver entered the pool of water by standing on the top edge of the culvert and noticed a small whirlpool on the surface. He entered the culvert by grasping the interior ridges of the pipe. However, he retreated due to the strong current, pulling him further into the culvert and pulling his mask from his face. The diver then exited the water. Hard to believe he'd actually even considered going in. Wow. The IC directed pumps to be used to pump out as much water as possible where the victim was pulled in. He then had crews cover the culvert with plywood to try to reduce the water flow. Once the water level was down approximately 6 inches from the top of the culvert, the safety diver from Rescue 11 directed light from his flashlight into the culvert. He could see into the culvert approximately 50 feet, but did not see the missing victim. Crews continued searching the area for approximately 3 hours. A crew at the north end of the scene found a strobe light flashing under the water. The crew then noticed the reflective tape from the victim's bunker coat, approximately 1 foot below the surface. At approximately 22:45 hours, the crews called out that they had located the victim. The victim was removed by the police department and firefighters. He was pronounced dead by the coroner and transported to the city morgue.
Unbelievable tragedy. I remember when this call happened. I remember because it was 2000. So, yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah. The recommendations on this instance from the NIOSH report, which is why we're here, to learn about what we should or shouldn't do. Recommendation number 1, firefighters should ensure that a proper scene size up is conducted before performing any rescue operations, and applicable information is relayed to the officer in charge. The firefighters should conduct a complete on-scene size up and relay the information to the officer in charge or the IC. Similar to a fireground incident, size up information is imperative to ensure all information is considered and a risk-benefit analysis is conducted, protocols are followed, hazards are identified and minimized. Typically, scene size up is the responsible of the first arriving officer. However, firefighters should also examine the surroundings to identify hazards as they approach the scene. Obviously, they didn't identify the hazards. They thought the lady was standing on ground when she was standing on the edge of the culvert.
This was dark too, I believe, was it not, Paul? Yeah, 22:45
yes.
hours.
Yep, it is.
So it's after dark.
Dark, rainy night.
Unusual rain event, lots of water, and it must have been extraordinarily difficult to do a proper scene size up.
Well, and it's a very
you just got the surface of the water.
But it's an incongruous area. It's a very low hazard area. It's a boulevard surrounded by commercial buildings and parking lots that you drive by every day, and
Swales.
You make no consideration that there's a hazard there that you could go into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recommendation 2, fire departments should ensure that all rescue personnel are provided and wear appropriate PPE when operating at a water incident. All fire departments who are subject to water rescue calls should ensure that all rescuers are trained in water rescue and that they don proper PPE. So really, these guys were not called out to do water rescue. They were called out to assess, I guess, or assist civilian drivers in cars that were in the water.
That's a water rescue.
Sounds like a water rescue to me.
That's right. It's a water rescue.
And
our rule used to be if you're within 10 feet of the water, you better have a PFD on. Even if you're drafting from a pond, you better have a PFD on in case you fall in.
Right. And there's many different kinds of water rescues. There's shore-based water rescue where you don't enter the water. You're throwing a rope basically for somebody to catch onto. There's still water rescue where there's no flowing water, and you enter the water, but the water is not moving. So, it's a stagnant pond. And then there's what they call swift water or moving water. And actually the water's not moving that fast to be considered as swift water. As I forget the numbers, like it's pretty low speed. But like we said, water is extremely heavy. And when you get it into a confined space like a culvert, the force can be overwhelming.
This includes
Anyway, all fire department members should be subject to water rescue, should ensure that they are trained in water rescue and that they don the proper PPE. This includes a water rescue helmet to protect your head. Not a firefighter's helmet, which has a lot of, can really catch in the water, right? So you need to protect your head. You need to wear appropriate PPE, personal flotation devices. Firefighters should not be placed in a water rescue situation wearing standard firefighter turnout clothing. It's actually a hazard. Turnout clothing, when saturated with water, can add a considerable amount of weight, approximately 60 pounds. Not only 60 pounds, 60 pounds clinging to you, so you can't even regularly articulate your arms and legs. But this is added even to your overall weight, making it extremely difficult to swim. Since this incident, the department has issued PFDs on every apparatus, as well as alternative reflective gear to wear during inclement weather operations. So I saw a TikTok video the other day, and it was firefighters jumping into a pool wearing their bunker gear and SCBA. And the narrative said, we wear our SCBA into pools because it gives us additional buoyancy.
Okay.
No, it
Interesting.
doesn't. If you
No,
throw your BA into a swimming pool, does it float or does it sink?
it's yeah, it sinks. The it is very common in the common practice in the fire service in Western Canada to do drowning training with PPE on, where they wear. And I'll tell you right now, don't wear your current in service PPE because you can ruin it because of the chlorine and the chemicals in the water. But if you have old gear, definitely throw the old gear on and teach your firefighters how to doff their turnout gear in the water, because it's
Saving
something
yourself.
save yourself in case you fall in the water. And that
Right.
is a common practice, and it's a good training
Right.
evolution. But of course, you would have life-saving people, water rescue people, standing
Right.
by in the
Right.
pool to rescue you if you have trouble.
Right. But in this case, they actually had firefighters putting a CB on deliberately to use as scuba gear.
Well, it's a TikTok video. What
Yeah.
can I say?
And in this particular incident we're reviewing, that was also done.
I think it's maybe Draeger. I think it can be used underwater. I know one of the brands, they say it will work underwater in case you happen to fall in during a firefighting effort. Anyway, it won't make you lighter though. No, it doesn't add to your buoyancy. It's an extra 30 pounds. The fire recommendation number three: fire departments should ensure firefighters who could potentially perform a water rescue are trained and utilize the reach, throw, and row and go technique, meaning that the first thing you should try to do is reach with an object, a branch, whatever, a throw. You throw a rope, or you row out there in a flotation craft, or if you have to swim. Last resort that you actually get in the water, because you're trying to minimize the risk on the
Right.
firefighters, on the
Right.
rescuers.
And you should be carrying that length of webbing in your pocket. And
Yes,
they were using a welding cable as a safety
that
line.
they grabbed. Yeah, because the
Right.
truck was way down there. But in your pocket, you should have something. Absolutely. A rescue.
Yeah.
Always have a chunk of webbing in your pocket. You can make
Yeah.
a hasty harness. You can wrap it around a tool. You can do all kinds of stuff with it.
Extend your reach.
Yep. Rescuers should attempt a rescue by extending a long-handled tool, such as a pike pole, a throwing rope, or a life flotation device with an attached rope to the victim, or the really cool the drone life preserver thing that you can send out, self-propelled, and it goes out there and it rescues the person. Anyway, sorry, you got carried away. Or by using a boat to gain access to the victim. Additionally, a pike pole could be used to determine the water depth before you walk into unknown waters, just like sounding a roof.
Part of
As a
your
last
assessment.
as a last resort, rescuers who are outfitted in the proper PPE, clothing, and a personal flotation device, not your bunker gear, should attempt to swim to victims to bring them to safety. Firefighters who are respond to any potential water rescue situations should be properly trained to perform water rescues.
Unfortunately, once this firefighter became trapped in the whirlpool, he was probably non-rescuable.
Right.
He was sucked down and went down that pipe probably very rapidly.
Confined space. Very lucky they didn't lose more responders.
Extraordinarily lucky.
Yeah. Probably due to the physical skill of firefighter number one that was able to pull himself out.
Who almost drowned to start
Yep.
with.
Yep.
And so imagine that weighing on your conscience. It would
Mm-hmm.
brutal incident. Recommendation 4, fire departments should develop site surveys for existing water hazards. So, like you talked about earlier, Paul, they probably drove this highway, every single day, but
Yep.
didn't recognize it as a potential rescue location, didn't
Mm-hmm.
see the hazards. So,
Yep.
site surveys for water hazards should include existing water hazards based on historical data. Where do people historically getting caught in the river or whatever? But should also include looking at flood mapping, identifying where water will pool. So, they might not be where there's been incidents already, but you're looking for site-specific hazards like low areas, culverts, that kind of thing. And how you would, address an incident, like what specific PPE would you need and what techniques, I guess, strategies would you need in each of those areas. After the site survey is developed, the firefighters should be trained on potentially dangerous areas which could result in water rescues. Although the body of water where the victim drowned is not typically thought of as a hazard site, the surrounding residents and the department had known the potential for flooding with very little rainfall. It was designed to collect water and take
Yep.
it away from the site. So, of course, there was water in it. Since this incident, the department has identified all open culverts, sewers, or similar types of drains and has developed recommendations that are provided to various city fire stations and to the city public works division, putting great signs to minimize the possibility of future incidents.
Put them into your response software, Active 911 or I Am Responding. It's easy to add stuff to those so that you're aware that they're there.
Yeah.
Recommendation 5, fire departments should ensure standard operating procedures are developed and utilized when water rescues are performed. And I'm sorry, but if you're walking in the water above your boots, it's a water rescue. In addition to other fireground operations, SOPs pertaining to water rescue should be developed to standardized practices and techniques, should outline at minimum the following mandatory appropriate PPE, equipment, or apparel likely to endanger personnel if they fall into the water or attempt to rescue. Upstream safety spotters, personnel staged downstream points, staging only properly trained personnel in the danger areas, standard communications, waterway rescue pre-plans, and safety considerations for rescuers. I don't know how many times I've showed up on scene or talked to people and you see the firefighters in their bunker gear in the boat. And I'm going, guys, why are you wearing bunker gear in a boat? You are it's the worst thing in the world you could do. Go into your coveralls, wear your normal clothes, whatever. Don't wear your bunker gear in a boat.
Yeah. And also, this means that there are times you're just going to have to say, no, we're not doing that.
We can't do it. We have to wait for the appropriate
Yeah.
trained resources, appropriate equipment.
Yeah. There was an incident that happened in the late, it was 1990, sometime in the 1990s, where a firefighter in Southern Ontario drowned trying to make a water rescue.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ministry of Labor was going to charge the fire department with as being responsible for his death. They backed off in the end, but essentially what happened is it caused a moratorium on firefighter-based rescues
Mm-hmm.
for close to 10 years. And the reason for that, of course, was because he wasn't equipped or trained to do this rescue. And it forced a major change in how fire departments approached water rescues, basically forced them to become trained and equipped and experienced in doing that. And it was a good thing. It doesn't mean firefighters have stopped drowning. They still drown doing water rescues.
We say the same thing about, you should have minimum firefighter 1 and 2 if you're going to be an interior attack firefighter.
Yep.
We bemoan the fact that many provinces don't have minimum training requirements for firefighters.
Yeah,
well, that's another
mistake.
current event was BC updated their Fire Department Act here a couple of weeks ago. I haven't read it yet, but they have a brand new Fire Service Act in British Columbia, which I wrote on the thing, hello, Alberta, because we have nothing here. But anyway.
Right. So setting standards for firefighters.
Yeah, exactly. And the same for water rescue, the same for hazmat.
Yeah. It's a radical idea, I know, but it saves lives.
I know.
Recommendation 6. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, where are you?
No, I think you're right.
Recommendation 6. Fire departments should ensure that when using self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBAs, that manufacturer guidelines are followed. Although there is no evidence that it contributed to this fatal event, although I must comment that it might have contributed to a second fatal event.
It could have, yeah. Yeah, it could have. Recommendation 6, being provided as a reminder, good safety policy. SCBA manufacturers' precautions should be followed to ensure firefighter safety. If the manufacturer's operating maintenance instructions state that the respirator is not to be used for purposes other than authorized in your respiratory protection program, for example, must not be used underwater. There are a number of reasons for this statement. When the SCBA is used underwater, the curved polycarbonate lens of the facepiece with water on one side and air on the other can cause significant distortion to the user's vision due to the refraction of light as it passes from water to air. Additionally, the pressure reducer of an SCBA is referenced to ambient environment. The passages into connecting inside they relate to the surrounding atmosphere. It's not designed to be underwater. So most SCBA is not designed to be underwater. Therefore, if you're going to use it underwater, you better make sure that it is approved by the manufacturer. basically. And then recommendation 7, municipalities should identify flood-related hazards and take steps to correct them as soon as possible in order to minimize potential for injury. Before the incident, the city had reviewed several complaints about large amount of standing water and flooding in this area. The drainage pipe involved in the incident was initially installed in 1960 and measures 60 inches in diameter.
5
It was
feet.
on a 6-year plan to be replaced with a larger velocity pipe. And covered to prevent accidental injury during times of flooding. Work to replace the pipe was expected to begin in 2003. Since the incident, a junction box and trash gate have been installed to help prevent further injuries. So 3 years too late. That should have been identified as a risk. Maybe even a little sign saying entrapment hazard or something.
Yeah. But, as a fire department, if you see large ditches adjacent to roadways, as a firefighter, think in your head, rain, water, water in ditch. Where's the water going?
Yeah,
If it's
exactly.
going, it's got to go somewhere. So if it's not running into a creek directly or something like that, it must be running under a culvert. And it might be a smart idea to take a leg stretching break and walk along the ditch on a sunny day and see what you can see. It might be a useful thing to do.
This is know your area, know your district kind of
Know
thing,
your
right?
district.
Exactly. Know your district. It's a simple little incident that I thought was very appropriate for this time of year. We've been seeing on the news all the flooding everywhere. And so I thought, hey, let's do this one in August and possibly make people think twice before something goes wrong.
Yeah. It's always tragic when firefighters lose their lives doing the job. The job is inherently dangerous. There's no doubt about that. But when they go off and do something that they're totally unprepared to do and lose their life doing that, it's doubly tragic because it's so preventable.
Yep, exactly. Well, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Emergency Traffic Podcast. We appreciate your input and your feedback, and we hope that they help you. Please, let's be safe out there.
Likewise, come home every day.
Exactly. Everybody comes home.